Oh, a little ahead of myself. Hi, everybody. My name is Dean Moyer. I'm the coordinator of the career department here at Ohio Dominican University, and we're going to talk about resume writing and LinkedIn today. So I know this isn't the most exciting topic, but I can say with 99% accuracy that every one of you is going to need to use a resume at some point going forward. I can also say that that resume will need to be updated at some point going forward. And this is incredibly important information for you to know how to do. So today our goal will be to develop resume writing skills that can be used to apply for internships and full or part-time employment. And the learning outcomes, you will be able to use Handshake to upload a resume document, schedule appointments. You'll be able to identify generally the difference between good and bad resumes. You'll learn about structural rules and formatting rules for professional resumes, the do's and don'ts, so to speak. You will create a professional resume document using an approved resume template or from scratch and turn it in for review. We'll understand the importance of Handshake and LinkedIn as tools for networking. And let's get rid of this little thing down here. And we'll know how to schedule an appointment to meet one-on-one with the Career Development Center. So for this assignment, it's broken into two main parts. There is uploading something to Handshake. The reason I think this is an important part of the assignment is I want you to know how to get on Handshake, to upload a document, and from there you cannot ever say, I don't know how to do Handshake, never heard of it. You've already been on it, you've uploaded a document. It's very easy, but I want to know that you know how to get there and how to do that. It's very important that when you upload that document, and I'll say this again, do not use an online template. And we'll talk about why that is, but online templates suck. Save your resume using the following format if possible. Last, comma, first, initial, resume, business, 240. This will help me to track it. But what I'd like to not see is people uploading the document untitled 1, untitled 2, just saying resume, right? I get so many that just say resume, and it'd be easier for my tracking purposes to have a little more nuance in that. Submit that document to Handshake by the due date. I will then track submissions. I will know who uploaded and when you uploaded and everything. Your document will either be approved or have changes suggested. We try to get that done within 2 weeks or so of the submission date. If changes are suggested, we always recommend you make an appointment or at least review the feedback. Approval is a little more difficult to obtain. That would essentially be that, yeah, I don't really have any changes for this resume. You clearly know what you're doing. Keep on doing what you're doing. So all about Handshake, we'll cover some big ideas. The top 4 things to do so you can make an appointment with the Career Center staff. This is the number one functionality that Handshake has for you. You can make an appointment with us at any time, and we can work on anything you need for your career needs. The reality is that your career, right, it isn't just going to happen to you. You're not just going to go to college, do your classes, play your sports, graduate, and all of a sudden you're in a good career. It doesn't work that way. We have to be an active agent in this, and we have to be thinking ahead, sometimes a year ahead, 2 years ahead, thinking about what am I working towards? And we're here to help you with that process. So I will often tell students, if you can only dedicate 1 hour per semester to meeting with us, that is a phenomenal start. That is such a great place to begin, and we can get so much done over your time here just with that little bit of commitment. So you can register for career fairs and other events on Handshake, both on and off campus. We always send out, I believe once a week, we try to send out something from the Career Center talking about different events that are available. And soon the career fair, career week will be coming up, which contains career fairs. So keep an eye out for that and get ready to register for that. You can sign up for on-campus interviews for employers that do that. And you can research and apply for jobs and internships, all really important. So when you go to upload the document, very simple. The way I have outlined this entire presentation, you should have access to it, is you should be able to come back, reference this presentation, and not have any questions. So uploading the document, click on the profile bubble in the top corner. It starts with your initials. If you've uploaded a photograph, it will probably be your photograph. Click on that, click My Documents, upload new document, upload that file, and submit it. Easy as that, and the first part of the assignment is done. So navigating to make appointments, this is what that'll look like. You go to the ODU homepage, and here's the chain of links you will click. You go to the homepage, you click Campus Resources, go to the Career Development Center for students and alumni right here, and it will bring you to this page. On this page, there's that giant button that says Make a Career Advising Appointment. And we also, under there, you see, we also offer walk-in advising on Wednesdays. So when you click, this is kind of what it'll walk you through. Choose your class level, what kind of appointment you're looking for. Pick the staff member. Appointment medium is, do you want to meet in person? Do you want to meet over video? Pick the day you want. In whatever day you select, once all that criteria is filled out, all of our availability is already preloaded there. Anytime that we have a gap in our schedule, you're able to just pop in there and say, I want that time, and it's yours. Once you do that, your screen will look a little bit different than this. This is my administrator's side, but what will be the same is this help requested bubble. Help requested, please fill out that help requested a little bit just to kind of let us know what you're doing, even if it's Business 240 class, something like that. It helps us keep things a bit more organized. So without further ado, let's get into the meat of what this is all about. What is a resume? I'd like to hear some ideas from you all. What comes to mind when you hear resume? Anything at all?
Yeah, history of work.
History of work? Background? Skills and achievements? Anything else? We're listing a lot of sections or content. What are some ideas you have about resumes? Are they fun? Are they boring? Are they daunting? Are they easy? There were some other ideas there. Anything at all? That's fair. Very fair. It's not something you want to do. Nobody's like, man, I can't go out tonight. I've got to go home and work on my resume. So this is not what we want to do, but we also know that this is something we're going to have to do. Of all of the documents, as I said before, of everything we could talk about, the one constant in almost every single job application, minus the corner, like meet someone in a coffee shop and have a conversation kind of thing, they all require a resume. So some things I'd like you to think about resumes. First, it is a living document. Who can give a definition of a living document? Changing. Fantastic. So it's constantly changing. When we know about it, go ahead.
You have to update it as things develop in life. Training.
Absolutely. And the reality is that as soon as a resume is successful, right, and in that it results in you getting an interview and you end up getting a job, immediately, that resume is no longer up to date, right? It is almost constantly in a state of flux. Just as you are constantly changing, the resume is constantly changing, and you need to know how to update it. But what I don't want is for you to feel like that is a huge monumental task. It should be clean, clear, and concise, listing relevant experiences and skills. So if this is really hard to read, it's really ugly, it's really dense with information, it's not clean, clear, and concise, and it's going to reduce its efficacy. A resume is used to gain an interview. An interview gets us the job. So distinction here. You could have a phenomenal resume, and everywhere you submit that, you're getting offers for interviews. But you don't know how to handle an interview. You get the sweats, you get nervous, you don't know how to respond, you maybe don't show up on time, you're not dressed professionally, all of these things that could go wrong in an interview, and you're not going to be getting any jobs. So a resume gets you an interview gets you a job. A resume should emphasize qualifications and avoid unnecessary identifying information. A resume is not the place to list race, marital status, sexual orientation, religious affiliation, all of those, actually age, right? All of those extra details there that in all technicality should not have an effect on your employability, right? These things are illegal technically to have an effect. However, there are still people that have any number of biases for these factors, and we do not want to afford that opportunity. These should be tailored to a specific purpose. One idea you'll hear a lot in the world of resumes is relevance. It's got to keep it relevant, keep it relevant. But I like to think of relevance as most clearly defined by the target. Imagining we're shooting a bow at a nice bullseye. Initially, you're aiming for the bullseye, and when you hit, you're like, yeah, I hit it. Now, if I said, aim for the top right corner of that target, and you shot and you hit the bullseye, you would say, dang, didn't mean to do that. So relevance is defined by what we are aiming at. So when we determine what our goal is, that should subsequently change how we are working with our resume, the terms we're using, the focuses we're emphasizing. And we'll see some ways we can do that. So between these two resumes here, we've got resume 1 and we've got resume 2. Okay. How many of you would select resume 1? How many of you would select resume 2? Okay. Unanimously, for those of you that responded, say resume 2 is the better one. Is that because they're more qualified? We have no idea. We have nothing. We know nothing about these resumes. We don't even know what the position is that they're applying for. What we do know is that one looks better. I'm using this to demonstrate that formatting matters. It has an impact. And it can be that first impression onto why you would pick up one of these two resumes in front of you on your desk. So let's talk about some basic ideas behind formatting the resume. So a resume is fundamentally divided into any number of sections, right? We often see them listed. There's sections, we've touched on a couple of those, but what are some sections we might have in a resume? Skills?
Age.
No, probably don't want age. That's one of those identifying pieces of information. You shouldn't be hired based. Email, fantastic. Contact, fantastic. What else? Experience. You have something? Work history. Anything else?
Achievements on there if they're pertaining to like
sure.
Probably not that you want spelling bee, but like
yeah, sure. Achievements, that's a good one. So here's a bunch of ideas. Contact information, right out of the gate, fantastic. Summaries or objective statements. These are really common. Skills, we covered that. Education, we had mentioned that earlier. Work experience, but now we get into some things that you might not think about. Projects that you've been involved in. Publications you've put out, maybe you've been involved in some research and you've got a publication out there. Volunteer experience, campus involvement. We talked about awards, maybe honors or scholarships that you were afforded, relevant coursework, and any other section, right? So the key takeaway here that I'd like you to consider is that you can put a section that represents anything you want to list, right? You don't have to feel bound to certain sections. So to touch briefly on the idea of templates. Now, I said before, do not use online templates. Do not use online templates, and I will still inevitably, I'll try to give you a running count of how many online templates I get, but don't use online templates because, one, they look like online templates. I can see it immediately that I know that you went to a site, you just filled it in, whatever. You don't necessarily have the skills to make this resume. Two, and maybe most importantly, they are really, really hard to work with. Right? You don't have any idea of how they're formatted the way they're formatted. And as soon as you need to update it, you go and you try to do that and you basically can't do it, right? It's not gonna go where you want it to go. And I also find that as it relates to sections, that students tend to get kind of locked in to the sections listed. The example might be volunteer experience. If you're a student that has had no volunteer experience, what I'll find is a student say, I didn't know what to put there. I don't know what to put. I haven't really done any volunteer experience. I guess I could spin something to put it that way. Just delete the section, right? Like it's as easy as that. So the sections are not locked into place. If we were to say there were some that were somewhat locked into place, contact information, obviously. The skills section is really impactful. Work experience of some type, you should probably have something. And your education, you're all in college, you'd be remiss to leave that off your resume. So here's some ideas of sections, but now let's talk about how do you set up the basic fundamental formatting pieces. There's a lot of content here, but the idea is you're going to open up whatever word processor you're comfortable with. I prefer Microsoft Word. That makes it easier for me. I use Word all the time. If you use Google Docs all the time, that's fine. Get comfortable with these same rules in whatever processor you're using so you can get good at them. So consistency is key. If you had a little catchphrase you took from this today, it would be consistency is key, right? If I had on a resume, let's say, one of my entries says Columbus, Ohio, right? And it spells it out. And then the next entry said Columbus, OH, right? Small difference. Maybe it goes unnoticed. But the next entry, I have a date and it's 05/24. And the next entry says January 24, right? How many times can we have small inconsistencies like that before it just looks bad? It looks like you didn't attend to the details at all. It's probably more than one, but we know the less you have, the more consistent it is, the better it looks. We want to set the margins to 0.5 on all sides. You can go as high as 1 inch, but what this will essentially do is bring the text out further on the edges of the page, allowing you to use more of the space. We want to use 0 point before and after font and single spaced lines. This is going to smash our lines together so we can get more content that way. I like to think of when I would write papers in college, and I would see like a 2-page paper. I'm like, oh, that's not so bad. And it says single spaced. And I'm like, it's so much more work. It's like literally double the work. So when in this context, reducing that to single space is a good thing. We can use more information on the same amount of space. For font choice, right? I could bring up a document and I'd flick through some fonts, and certainly there are some fonts that all of you would be like, no way. The big fancy cursive fonts, the big block letters, obviously those aren't the fonts we use. Outside of that, you can use many different fonts. Any font that looks clean and clear. I think of font in 4 important categories as it relates to resumes. Font will increase the height of letters, okay? This sounds pretty dumb, but if you increase the height of a letter, you increase all of them, it goes longer on the page. You can manipulate page length pretty significantly by manipulating font. It also is letter width, which again, will push things onto the next line and increase the page length. The bolding and italicizing stand out much more or much less on different fonts. So these are what I'm thinking of as I'm looking to different fonts, saying, which one do I like? Don't feel like you must stay to Times New Roman or Calibri or whatever. I would say that as a font size reference, Times New Roman 10 to 12 point font is a pretty fair size reference. It doesn't mean you have to use that. I'm just saying that some fonts at 10 font look very tiny, and other fonts at 10 font look very large. So that's a good reference point. We want your full name to be the largest thing on the page, maybe as high as 24, 25 font, something like that. We want to effectively use white space. So this is not a way that we typically think about resumes, but if we back up to here, and we see on this document, we have big chunks where there's no information, giant chunks where there's no information that we could potentially shuffle things around in order to put more information and thin out that content over here that is currently a nice big wall of text. We want to avoid photographs. So this is not typically something I see in domestic style resumes, but it does crop up. But photographs, again, identifying information, not at all relevant. We don't need a photograph, and it can look kind of tacky. Save the photograph for your LinkedIn. Generally, we want to avoid the use of color, okay? Usually. If you are in the marketing space, graphic design, anything that relates in some capacity to art, you could make a case for being more artistic with that resume. Now, obviously, that's going to be a showcasing of your skills, but generally speaking, it is not advisable to use color. What it tends to do is make it look more tacky. Oftentimes, the logic is simply no more than, I want this to stand out, so I'm going to make it orange, right? And that just tends to not look very good. So avoid color. The point is not to have someone look at your resume and say, wow, what a lovely shade of orange, right? It's to look at your resume, gain the information, and give you a call for an interview. Use doc files for editing and PDF for applying. The main point here about PDFs for applying is if you send a doc file, let's say you use Google Docs, and you use a certain font, you really like it, and you send it over as a doc file, and I open it up in Word, and that font isn't supported, it can shift the font, everything we talked about changes, and all of the work you did to make it look nice is right out the window. So save as a PDF and send as a PDF, and it will make sure that your work is preserved. Strong bullet point statements. So this is going to be, we'll talk more about this, but strong bullet point statements are absolutely essential in writing a strong resume. And generally, we want to keep a resume from 1 to 2 pages. So when we begin, freshmen often don't have the content to fill 1 page. So we say, come on, let's get some more stuff on there, fill it up to a page. And then they start to gain experience and they're starting to spill over onto the second page. And I say, well, maybe you can get rid of some of that old stuff. Your hobbies, not super relevant. Let's get rid of that. Maybe your high school experience, we can start to weed that out. But once we have filled up 1 page of really relevant information, you can begin to think about moving to 2 pages. However, if moving to 2 pages means a couple lines on the next page, looks pretty tacky, looks bad. If we fill up 2 full pages, that looks pretty good. And there isn't some clear line that I can say, at halfway it's acceptable. But we can say that a little spillover looks bad and all the way to a second page looks good. So the closer we can jump from 1 straight to 2 full pages, the better effect we're going to have. So towards the top, we typically have, whether it be a summary, an objective statement, a career aspiration, teaching philosophy. There's all different kinds of things that could rise to the top of the resume, but they all serve this purpose of an introductory piece. So on average, how long do employers look at your resume?
Sometimes not at all. Sometimes not at all. They put it in the
That's fair. That's fair.
Scans it for them and then 10 seconds.
We'll talk about it. 10 seconds. Great guess. What else? Okay, but how long do you think they spend on it? 5 seconds, somebody said? A couple minutes? So the reported average of time employers look at your resume is 6 to 7 seconds. Okay, yeah, that's the right response. That's the right response. Because in reality, this is probably what it looks like. You said sometimes not at all, right? First, we have a hurdle to pass called applicant tracking software. So generally, what this is most employers will have their postings online, and in order to filter out some of the less qualified candidates, a software will try to match your resume with the job description and see, is this person generally a fit? Do they have enough, have they met enough of the criteria for me to even look at it? So that might be step 1. That's just based on words. Step 2 is I'm a busy professional, right? I need someone to fill this position, but I'm doing stuff throughout the day. I've got a meeting in 30 minutes. I've got 30 minutes to look at these resumes. And for all I care, they are just pieces of paper. I don't know you. I don't care about you. at some point, right? That's the reality. So I'm going to look at this resume, and first step, if it looks like trash, that's it. I'm not going to even bother. You don't put in the effort, I don't put in the effort. Step two, it doesn't look like trash. I'm not going to read it like a book. I'm not going to pore over every line and try to discover and prove to myself that you're in fact qualified. And I'm going to scan over it. I'm going to look for the keywords. I'm going to spend a little bit of time on it. Maybe, 30 seconds, average all that out, whatever it actually comes to for the average of 6 to 7 seconds, but I'm not going to spend a ton of time. And then ultimately, the only thing I'm trying to answer, all I'm trying to discover in that moment is, do I want to call this person for an interview? So the resume inhabits a very, very narrow point in time. It is a very narrow thing we're trying to achieve. And if any adjustments that you make going forward help you in that regard, if you can think of it in terms of, will this help sell me in a very short amount of time, you can feel free to make those adjustments, right? That's what we're trying to think about. So because we know that, introductory statements have arisen over time. These are very common at this point, but in their origins, it's because we know they don't spend a lot of time looking at the resume. And if they're going to read anything, we'd like them to read this introductory piece to pique their interest, right? So a summary and an objective statement, there's all different kinds, but fundamentally, we'll talk about summaries or objective statements. So a summary might be more paragraph style. It tends to be more descriptive. You can talk more about who you are as a person. This might be close to what we would call an elevator pitch. Does anybody know what an elevator pitch is? Elevator pitch?
Yeah. I'll give you an example.
Yeah, sure.
So when you have like you don't have this time to explain yourself in an elevator, so you try to get it all out at once and make it sound good.
Yeah, fantastic. That is very much the idea. The reason we say elevator pitch is this theoretical situation where you step onto an elevator with someone you're trying to pitch yourself to, and you've only got a couple floors to be like, hey, this is what I'm all about. You should think about hiring me. So fantastic definition. This is what the summary statement should be. It should be short. It should be impactful. It should be thoughtful, right? It should have a lot of good content here. On the other hand, we have an objective statement, which is a little more short, easy to adjust, can save some space. We'll give a couple examples of that here. So summaries. Promising student athlete majoring in exercise science at Ohio Dominican University. How many student athletes might write something exactly like that? Almost every single one, right? So oftentimes what I see are these really lame boilerplate, same old cookie cutter response using the same punchy keywords. And do you think someone picks this up and say, finally, someone who's promising, put those in the promising pile? Yeah, I think not. So same with highly driven and self-motivated, right? These are things. Now, on one hand, is it useful to say that about yourself? Sure. I wouldn't say that I'm organized because I'm not. So I might say I have a strong work ethic, a strategic thinker, right? Good public speaking, perhaps, but I'm not going to say some things about myself that aren't true. So I do want to give it credit where credit's due. It's useful to say some things. However, it isn't like it's something robust and really sells yourself. What you might instead say is something like, my name's Dean Moyer. I'm the coordinator of the career department at Ohio Dominican University, and I have a passion for working one-on-one with students to achieve their career goals. I can see that your institution is very much in alignment with the things that I value in a workplace, and I would love to be a part of your company. Right? Something in that ballpark is way more impactful than saying something like this, something that speaks specifically to that position. Now, the objective statement I'd like to point out, because it is different, much shorter, as you can see, and generally the formula that I like to follow here is seeking position at company, working with, focus, available for hire, time frame. So the reason I set it up like that, first off, position and company, obviously that's going to have to change every time you apply, but all of a sudden I know why this resume is on my desk. And I know that you applied specifically to me. You put the effort in, that little bit of effort, literally change 2 words to let me know that this is for my company. Now, the focus part, you're stretching? So the focus part is that there's a conversation occurring here, right? The company has something they need. You have something you bring to the table, right? So what that might sound like is willing to bring an expertise in career assessment strategies and student appointments to motivate student athletes and entrepreneurs of the next generation, right? So the institution may be really focusing in on their student athlete population and their entrepreneurs or something like that. And I say, here's what I bring to the table, and here's how we're going to work together to make this work. So there's a really strong value statement there, easy to adjust. 4th skills section. So we have different terminology things you'll hear thrown around: soft skills, hard skills, transferable skills. The main distinction I'd like you to make here is that if I say, let's say, communicator, right? That's what I would call a soft skill. That's not terribly descriptive. It is useful. You would also probably call that a transferable skill. Everybody wants you to be a good communicator. But to transfer that to a hard skill, I might say public speaking. That is a type of communication that is very tangible. I can see how I would slot that into my institution, how I can use that skill more than just something nebulous like communication. So applicant tracking software, we touched on that there are these softwares that will make that connection, and you do need to be considerate of that. And how you will be considerate of that is to add those industry keywords that you find on the job description, that you find in the company's mission statement. All of those key phrases are going to help you get past that hurdle. We want to make sure we're customizing these based on the application. We want to be extensive but honest, and we want to format them in an easily read and navigated way. So we'll do a little short exercise here. So I want you to write down 3 of the top skills that you have right now. What are your top 3 skills? Yeah, you can type and use your phone. I don't care. Once you've thought about those top 3 skills, I want you to think about 3 more skills that you've developed in the classroom. Lastly, 3 more skills you will need to develop in order to be successful at your profession. These could be things that you know are something that's important, but you just don't feel confident in yet. And if anybody successfully gets to 9 skills written down, I'd like you to share those. Anybody able to reach 9 skills? 7? 8 skills? 7. So, want to go ahead and share your 7?
Sure. The first 3, teamwork, kind of a natural leader, and does well under pressure.
Okay.
And 3 in the classroom is creative thinking, managing workload. And listening.
Okay.
Then the seventh one is just strategic thinking of psychology.
Okay, fantastic. So my follow-up question for all of you is, how many of you had one of those skills or something very close to it listed in your list? A couple people put their hands up. So I do want to demonstrate that it is difficult to write your skills out, right? When I ask students, tell me about your skills, the most common response I get is, I don't know. I don't really have any. So this is not the case. You do have skills, and it's just a matter of finding what they are and being able to put them into words, right? One example might be public speaking, right? You've probably developed that in the classroom, and you might not think about it.
I got none.
Okay, let's go. You got
Debating, communicating, problem solving, and then critical thinking, researching, and public speaking, and then adaptability, creativity, and networking.
Fantastic. So we can build out these lists, but these are three major approaches I'd like you to take as you begin to build your list. So first approach is introspection. We look to ourselves and we say, what am I good at? And you'll think long and hard about it. And as I said, I wouldn't for myself list organized, but there are a lot of things I would say about myself, so I build that list out. And I think for the second part, students tend to undervalue your time in class, right? If you are an accounting major and one of your projects is to, take this theoretical company and budget for the whole fiscal year and do all the different, I'm not a math guy, so all the different accounting stuff, whatever that is, you do this whole project, it takes a lot of time and effort. Are you a better accountant because of that? Absolutely. You are more informed about what it takes to be an accountant. You could theoretically list those skills. So look to your classrooms, labs you've been involved in, projects you've done, group assignments, discussions. All of these things are skill building exercises, and you need to appreciate them for that and give yourself the credit for those skills. And when you're looking to things that are required for your desired profession, the place that you'll most often find this is in the job description. I like to think about the job description very bluntly in this way, that if I have a position that I need to fill, the lowest level thing that I could do is put a help wanted sign in the window. Anybody who's walking by says, I'm help, and tosses their resume on my desk, right? And there's no discrimination in that process that I can't look. I would have to look through each one of those applications to determine if they're qualified, if they're even remotely close to what I'm looking for. And that is an inordinate amount of work for the employer. So in order to combat that, I write a job description. And I would, in the best case scenario, the job description is an incredible amount of information for you to utilize. You do not undervalue the job description. A well-written job description will tell you every single thing that I am looking for in the perfect employee. And in theory, if you apply in a timely manner and you have everything listed that they're looking for, there is no reason why they should not give you a call. There's no reason, because you are a perfect candidate. So as you're looking to those job descriptions, start to look at them critically and say, you'll see like necessary qualifications. It'll say something like able to use Microsoft Excel and other, programs. Do you have Microsoft Excel listed on how many of you can use Microsoft Excel? Pretty much everybody, right? And nobody, I'm assuming, listed Microsoft Excel on your little sheet there in the 9. So even there, we start to uncover other things where I go, what about this? What about this? Another example, when I say be extensive but honest, I often will ask students, do you speak multiple languages? Students usually go, not really. And I said, did you take Spanish in high school? This is the most common example. Go, yeah, well, I took Spanish. If you cannot speak Spanish fluently, but you understand that somebody is Spanish and they're speaking Spanish rather, that you pick up a couple words and you can tell they're upset or seeking help or something. Is that useful? Sure. somebody comes in and is asking those things, imagine yourself in another country. You come in speaking English in very broken English. Nobody else up to this point has helped you, and then in very broken English, one person says, "I try help," or something like that, really broken. The relief you would feel is massive. You would say, finally, somebody who can at least help. So a basic level of proficiency is worth listing, but we would, of course, list basic, right? We don't want to be accidentally hired as a Spanish interpreter with a basic understanding. So here's some examples of how that can look. In this top example, this is one way you may choose to list your skills. Now, I have some thoughts about this. One, does it draw attention? Sure. It really kind of pulls your attention there. However, there's only 9 skills listed here, really. And in roughly the same amount of space, we've got well over double the amount of skills listed here, right? This is a little more clear. We delineated, and over here we have, if these 9 aren't right on the nose for what this company's looking for, then it might just kind of be a waste of their attention. So I recommend doing a skill section like this. Once you have brainstormed about all of those different things, you look internally, you look to your classes, you look to the job descriptions, and you make this nice big list of skills. What we want to avoid is, let me give an example. I once worked with a student. I was an older student, had a huge resume. And he said, I have this one qualification that's really important for my field. And I said, okay, now where is that on the resume? And he went, it's in here somewhere. Employer's lost interest. Employer doesn't know it's there, isn't going to try to look. So we need to organize it in such a way that it's really easy. In this example, career counseling being the main focal point of this application, I've made sure career counseling is at the top of the list. I've listed a couple really important hard skills for that career, and I've bolded them to draw attention to them as well. This type of adjustment and specificity you can do all the time. And let's just imagine data entry was also important. There's no reason I couldn't come in here and bold data entry to draw attention specifically to that and say, hey, look at this. This is what you were looking for. From here on out, everything is a type of experience. Educational experience, relevant experience, professional, unrelated, volunteer, research, shadowing, internship. We could say any number of subheadings. But all of them should essentially showcase the employer name or institution name, something of that equivalent, the location, the position title, and the dates you held that position. That's a pretty good baseline of information. We want to list these things in reverse chronology. This means the most recent entry will be at the top of the list, right? This is the expectation. In most other things, we're kind of just adding as we go down. In this case, we want to add to the top of the list always. This is because most employers looking at resumes will expect the most recent thing to be the most current, the thing at the top of the list. We want to list starting and ending dates. When we list starting and ending dates, we can leave the day out. It doesn't need to be May 5th, 2024, just May 2024 is sufficient. And then each bullet point should outline ideally a very discrete and quantifiable aspect of your experience. So here are a couple of examples of what this can look like, and you'll see that they're different, but there's consistency between each one. So as we had mentioned earlier, consistency is key. Imagine that this is not underlined and it's italicized, and then maybe these bullet points start here and these ones start here, right? It doesn't take long before we say, geez, did the person even pay attention? But with this consistency, we have position, the position's bolded, it's underlined, there's this nice divider. We have an institution. As a babysitter, you don't really have an institution, so it's going to pass that up. And then we've got location, and then we've got dates over on the side. In this example, we have the institution underlined, we have location, we have position italicized, and then we have dates over there. Consistency across all places. So writing strong bullet points. Up to this point, if we've followed along, if we've done all these steps, what we should have is something of a skeleton of a resume. It's got all the framework in place, but there's not a whole lot of content. I don't really know a lot about what you did. So that's where bullet points come in. And bullet points are probably the most difficult thing about resumes, but they don't need to be. They're the most awkward part, but we have some tips on how you can do that more effectively. So the point of a bullet point is to be clear, clean, concise, and consistent, very straight to the point. We're going to avoid the use of I, me, and my. It is not I went, when I worked here, I was in charge of this. We just want to say managed project, such and so forth. Not a sentence and not a paragraph. So these are not, they're bullet points. They don't need to be necessarily grammatically correct, or the punctuation doesn't need to be, there's some debate over whether a period should be at the end of each bullet point or not. Again, consistency doesn't really matter. The point is to get the information across very impactfully. Each one should be discrete. That is to say, it should be very specific and in its own lane. I like to use a silly example here that hopefully help you memorize this, that I like to think about if what I want to list is to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, okay? And I could, of course, say that. I could say made peanut butter and jelly sandwich, okay? That's fine. But I could also say assembled products or assembled ingredients, created product, delivered product. A different level of specificity based on what I'd like to showcase on that. So there's sometimes people over package their bullet points and they have way too much information in one bullet point. Sometimes they go the other direction and they say rotated hand, placed on bread, lifted bread, set bread down, opened jar, got knife. That's way too much specificity. However, if you are applying to a bread company, would it make more sense to focus a bit on the bread, the way you handled it, the way you assessed the right ingredient, right? So specificity is going to be very important here, but make sure that you're getting that right level of description, the right amount of packaging, not over or under packaged. As a rule of thumb, we want a minimum of 2 bullet points and a maximum of 10. I think 3 to 5 is a nice cozy range. And we want to use the PAR method. So the PAR method for bullet points stands for project, action verb, and result. So I would like for this part for someone to rate the following bits. I just need somebody to call out a number between 1 and 10. I'll pick someone.
7.
Well, hold on. No calling yet. No calling yet. As we go forward. So you'll be my rater then. So for this next bullet point, cleaned the bathrooms. That's the whole bullet point on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being terrible, 10 being phenomenal. What do you rate this one? To 1. Okay. In this example, though, we do attend to 2 parts of the PAR method. We say, what did I do? I cleaned. And what did I clean? The action was the project is the bathrooms. So all I'll change next is I will add a result. So cleaned the bathrooms to ensure customer satisfaction. Where does that leave me? 5. Okay. And for the next part, maintained a clean work environment in order to ensure customer satisfaction. Better.
I would put in there that you follow procedure and protocol or something.
Right. So we can build them out. And the last step would be to add in numbers. Maintained a clean work environment in 3 separate facilities in order to ensure customer satisfaction ratings stayed above 90%. So if you follow through this process, writing bullet points should be pretty easy. And I know we're running short on time, so I'll gloss over the LinkedIn part to say LinkedIn is a great place to connect with employers, to find jobs, and to represent yourself online. Something like 75% of employers report looking to your LinkedIn profile to learn more about you. So make a LinkedIn, make sure you have a nice professional photograph, make sure you update it. I don't want to search your name and find like a blank picture, a blank banner, no information. I'd rather you just not make a LinkedIn at that point. So if you make a LinkedIn, take a little bit of time, update it, and it will be a wonderful wonderful tool for you as you go forward. So does anybody have any questions at this point?